Hi, today on Caffè Fibonacci, we're going to teach you how to cook with metadata. One of our main topics today is going to be metadata. We're going to tell you what metadata is and how you can leverage it to save a lot of time in your work.
So what is metadata?
Metadata is data about your data.
Okay.
If you have a photo, maybe you'll want to know who the photographer was. Maybe you'll want to know when it was last used in one of your publications. That's all metadata.
Okay. And so what does metadata do for us?
Well, why don't you show? Why don't you give us an idea of what metadata can do for us? Let's start out with
actually,
the Bridge.
Metadata is data about the data. That's how you explain it, right?
Yes.
Data about the data. And it's actually something that we can attach to the document, and we're actually writing inside of the document. Well, let's take the salami, for example. See, it doesn't have any how do you say, the paper thing here.
Label?
The label. It doesn't have any label. So we don't know what this salami is. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know anything about this salami. This salami has no metadata. Okay? So, yeah, right.
I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah,
but,
a salami without metadata. And what we can do with most of the Creative Suite applications is add metadata. But one really cool place to add metadata is Adobe Bridge. Because in Adobe Bridge, as we can see here, that's where we can actually access all of our creative assets to work with. We also have a little view, and that's down here. It's actually view number 2, and that's the horizontal film strip, I'm sorry. And the last one is called Metadata Focus. Okay? So that's where we start seeing information about the file. Or, if we go into the first view, which is the default view, we also have availability of our images here. We see the previews, and we also have the metadata panel. Okay? So let's look at this picture, for example. That's a picture of a dragon on a roof in the Forbidden City. Now, how could anyone know that if we don't tell, in the file that this is a dragon in the Forbidden City?
Well, I've been in the Forbidden City, so I do know that.
You do? You remember that dragon here?
But perhaps other people who had not been to the Forbidden City would benefit from this metadata experience.
Well, you see that the file name is called Beijing 0257.jpg. Mm-hmm. That's about everything that there is in that file. But if we go into the metadata panel, and here we see that we have file properties like the file name, the file size, the dimensions, the bit depth, the color profile, etc. And then in the IPTC core, we can add metadata. For example, when I imported these pictures inside of Bridge, I automatically added a copyright with my name, Rufus. I just wrote it in there as I was importing my files. But what we're going to do now is add a description to that photograph. For example, dragon on a roof at the Forbidden City. Okay? And then I'm going to click on this little button down here, this little check mark, to apply that. And what actually happened is that these words got written inside of the file.
Inside of the image file itself.
Inside of the image file itself. So it will always travel with it. And that's the real benefit of it. Because then we can use that metadata in other applications. Tim will show later that this data can be extracted inside of InDesign. Or, if I now open this picture inside of Photoshop, like so, we can go under the File menu and look for the File Info. And we'll see that inside of File Info now, we have Dragon on a Roof at the Forbidden City. So at all times, we always know what the image is about. Okay? So let's just say OK to that. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that once we add the metadata, I'm going to close that image and return to Bridge. I can actually search inside folders, inside of my entire computer for that metadata. For instance, if I do Apple F or Command F on the PC, I can look in a specific folder and I can look for a specific word. like criteria, all metadata, or you can look for exposure, altitude, and copyright notice, description. That's the field we just filled. But I'm going to look inside of all metadata. And I'm going to find that image inside of hundreds of images maybe that I have in that folder. And if I do find, what I get is that image. Because I was looking for dragon, and dragon is part of that image now. That word is part of the image. And the same thing actually also works on Illustrator files, on PDFs, on anything that you can preview the metadata with Bridge. For example, if I open this type here, this is an illustration, a vector illustration inside of Illustrator. And in the description, I wrote the word Beijing and simplified Chinese. Okay? Because I see that this is called BeijingType.ai, but I don't really know what it means. So it's really useful to have in the metadata information that will actually tell me what that thing is. And the same thing goes for this type of file. If I open it, Illustrator will open. And if I go under File, File Info, I can actually know what this file is. The word Beijing and simplified Chinese. So as you can see, metadata is really important to keep track of your files. To also help other people understand what your files are.
Another interesting thing about Bridge and metadata, on my machine right now, I've got an InDesign file selected. And what users will see, if they select an InDesign file in Bridge and look at the metadata, they'll see that InDesign automatically records font usage and swatch usage within a document. So you could search documents for all the documents that use a certain font or a certain spot color or whatever.
That's great. Especially because sometimes it's important to understand maybe if it's a missing font that causes a problem. You can see that in the metadata, right?
So now you're going to show us an actual glimpse of metadata itself residing in a file?
Yes. Let's go back to our Dragon file. For example, this one where we wrote down in the description. And just to show you that this data actually resides in the file, I'm going to open that JPEG with my text editor. And in my text editor, I will search for the word dragon. And here it is. Let me zoom in. Here we go. Dragon on a roof at the Forbidden City. This phrase is now part of that file and will live with it forever. Or until somebody decides to strip the data out.
So the benefit of metadata is that the metadata is embedded in the actual document or file. It's embedded in a little XML section. Okay.
Yes.
And when that Illustrator illustration or that Photoshop file is placed in an InDesign document, that metadata is there.
Yep.
And when that InDesign document is burned into a PDF, that metadata is there in the PDF. So this actually makes your PDF files much more robust for archiving purposes if you're using applications that support metadata like this, because wherever that file goes, the metadata goes with it.
Yeah, like if I put that dragon in an InDesign file and make a PDF and look for the metadata again, it'll also find that PDF.
Well, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else on
No, I don't
machine
think. I don't. I think
okay.
I think you should show us now how InDesign behaves with metadata and why it is so beneficial to use metadata.
Okay, so what I've got on my machine right now is just a newspaper layout, a newspaper page, and I'll zoom in here on a photo. Now this photo had metadata embedded in it. It could have been embedded in Photoshop or it could have been done in Bridge. It doesn't really matter. I want to show you how to look at metadata in InDesign. There's a couple different ways you can get at it. One is on the Info panel. There's a little flyout menu, and I can choose the File Info command there. I can also go into my Links panel, and a nice little shortcut is to use the Control-click or right mouse click on the actual image listing in the Links panel, and then go to File Info there. And so now here you'll see metadata that's been embedded in this particular image. Now notice I've got an author, which is the photographer here, and then a description. And the description is what we want to use for the caption for this particular photo. Now, I could just select that text and copy it to the clipboard, click OK, and then zoom down here to below the image, draw a text frame, and paste. I could reach in, I could go to the metadata and grab that caption and copy and paste it in there. But the truth is, that method is for suckers.
It is. It is.
That is for suckers.
Copy paste generally is.
Yeah. By the way, people that work, people that get paid by the hour should not be watching this episode because this information will be useless to you. Go check your eBay watch list because what I'm going to show you now is a way to save a ton of time, and because time is money, you're going to save a lot of money. This image has the metadata embedded, and I'm going to go down to, well, first I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit, like so, and I'm going to go down to my little scripts panel. I have in my scripts panel a script called XMP Photog Caption. This is a JavaScript that does something very interesting. One of the many great things actually about InDesign's scripting capabilities is that a script in InDesign CS3 can access metadata. It can peer into the metadata and extract it. So what I've got here is a script that when I select the image in question and run this script, it's going to ask me, how would you like this caption built? Well, I would like to apply an object style called photo caption, and I would like a vertical offset of 3 points, and let's make this 36 points high for the frame height. Then I just click OK, and boom.
Boom.
There's what I get. I not only get a caption created automatically, but it's also styled. Here's the photographer's name right there in one paragraph style, and then here's the actual caption text in another paragraph style. We're going to show you how that works, how to apply different paragraph styles via an object style in an upcoming episode. But when you think about that, in magazines and newspapers, the number of times that you have to create a caption frame and enter caption text, if you can do that automatically in an automated way, extracting metadata, that can be a huge time saver.
I know, Tim, that this is your script, but do you think we can share it with our audience?
Well, it's not my script. I did not write it, but yes, we're going to make this script available to everyone watching this episode. You're going to see a URL on your screen, and that's going to take you to Adobe Share. Yep. And at Adobe Share, you'll be able to download this very script. And because it's a JavaScript, it runs on both Mac and Windows. So everybody out there watching this now can go grab this script and start taking advantage of metadata.
Cool.
I'm going to show another example of this, because that was just done with a single image. And what I'm going to do now is go into a real-world scenario where I'm laying out a yearbook. And as you know, yearbooks are full of pictures, usually full of hundreds of pictures of students. I've got 15 more student photos to drop into this layout, so I'm going to use another little InDesign productivity tip here. I'm going to go to Bridge. And in Bridge, I have an archive of all of my senior class photos, and I'm going to select just arbitrarily 15 of these photos here. And I'm going to pick them up and then toggle on over to InDesign. Now, what I've got here in InDesign, when I release the mouse button, watch what happens. This invokes InDesign's multiple place feature. When I select multiple objects from Bridge or from the Finder or even through the Place dialog boxes, InDesign will load all of those files into its place cursor, and
I call it the place gun.
Well,
because
we call it place cursor, place gun. It really just depends on my mood.
I like the gun thing, but it's boom, 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 boom. Right?
Well, yeah, it's a nice semi-auto actually. Yeah. And what I've got here, you can see when I zoom in here, you'll see that I've got both a thumbnail of the next image that's going to be placed when I click. I also see a number in parentheses there that tells me I have 15 images right now. If I use the arrow keys, I can actually toggle through these images and look at them one by one, so I know exactly which image I'm going to get at any given time. So I'm going to zoom back out here and watch what happens. I'm going to drop these images into frames. Now when I drop it into these first few frames, you'll see that, I'm going to have to go back and fix the fitting. I'm going to have to set a bunch of fitting options. Notice what I've done down here. In the rest of these image frames down here, I have applied an object style, and watch the difference when I drop these images into these frames. Notice how that content just gets dropped in, sized to fit, cropped, and positioned automatically.
Well, I think, the word that you need to say here is my special word.
Mm-hmm.
Say it.
No, I can't say it. It's your word.
Okay.
It's your word.
Adobe Cadabra.
Yeah, it's a magical thing that we just did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my object style to the first 6 frames there that did not crop correctly. I'm just going to apply the student photo frame style, and boom. Now here's why this works. We're giving you 2 productivity tips in one here. First, the multiple place feature, and then the second thing we're showing you is frame fitting options. InDesign CS3 gives people the opportunity to set frame fitting options as an object property now. It's now a property of the actual frame. So this object style sets these frames so that the image will fill the frame proportionally, and then it will also crop it on one side, because what I wanted to do was move their heads up a little bit, because the way all these images were shot originally meant that they all needed to be adjusted. Being able to set those properties as part of an object style is huge, because you'll notice how fast I went through that. It saved me tons of steps having to adjust each one of those images individually. So now I've got a whole bunch of images in here. All these people have names and photographers involved here. And what I did down here, these images are already done. I need a caption here that gives both the person's name and credits the photographer. Maybe instead of that, in my yearbook, it might have a person's name and then their class. Like it might say Eric and sophomore, or something like that. Oop, yeah, I missed a guy there. Don't want to leave him out. Okay, and these folks down here too. So now what I've done is I've selected all of these photos that need to be captioned. I'm going to go back down to my script, this free script that you can download off Adobe Share. Okay, now I have all of my photos. They're scaled, they're cropped, they're positioned inside the frames. Now I just need to caption all of these things. If there was no way for me to automate this could take quite a bit of time to caption each one of these things individually. But one of the great things about this script that we're making available to you, again, use the URL at the bottom of your screen. This script enables me to select multiple objects, and it will just iterate through them, extract the metadata, and create the caption frame for me. So here we go. I'm going to launch the script, and I'm going to choose the object style. So what I need is the student photo caption object style. That will style the text in that caption automatically. Then a vertical offset of 0 and a frame height of 14 points. That's the height of the frame that I need. I just click OK, and then go ahead, your magic incantation, please, Rufus.
Yes, Adobe Cadabra. And as you look on the page, boxes are made and the text is put in. All that from the metadata.
Yeah, so metadata is your friend. This is a fantastic feature that's supported all the way across the Creative Suite. And it was designed to work across the suite. So whether you're working in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, or Acrobat, you can leverage this metadata to save yourself a lot of time and to create much more intelligent documents.
Cool.
So now we're going to move on to a different topic, somewhat different topic.
Oh, I remember that file.
This is a brochure that we're working on for a client, and what we're going to do now is show you a way to leverage something in InDesign regarding placed PSD files. So what I've got here across the top of my brochure is an image that Rufus put together for this whale watching company. And right now we can see that we've got a humpback whale jumping and the company logo over here. But I do happen to know that Rufus built a very rich layered PSD file for me in Photoshop, and he's given me a lot of design options. And after talking to the client, I realized that I need to change the content of this image a little bit. So I'm going to control or right-click on this image and bring up Object Layer Options. Object Layer Options is just a way within InDesign to go in and change the layer visibility in a placed Photoshop file or a placed PDF or a placed Illustrator file, now in InDesign CS3. So, but one thing I wanted you to notice is, in addition to enabling you to turning layers off and on individually, InDesign also supports layer comps. Do you want to describe briefly what a layer comp is?
A layer comp, maybe I can show it on my machine. Let me see if I find the file. Here we go. Let me just open that very quickly. It's actually a way of photographing what layers are on or off. So if you go under Window, there's this choice called Layer Comps. And this allows me to photograph the states of my layers. So for example, if I prepared some layer comps here, for example, one with the orca, one with the panorama and the logo without any fish, but they're not fish, right?
They're not fish.
No, they're mammals.
They're mammals. Yeah.
All right. So, and just the panorama. This is actually a panorama I stitched together with Photo Merge. And this gives me a good way to describe the sets of layers. And if you double click on it, you can actually, change the name, apply to layers, the visibility or the position of the layers. You can even input a comment, for you, Tim, who's going to use it in InDesign. So you can actually see the comment in the window in your object layer options inside of InDesign.
The practical implication of this is that the reality is that in professional design shops, you'll often have Photoshop files with over 100 layers.
Yeah.
Right? With all the different effects and adjustments that are being done to an image. And the problem that the layout artist has is that they don't know which combinations of layers the Photoshop artist has used to actually compose versions of that image. And so that's why we support layer comps. It enables the Photoshop jockey to say, okay, this set of layers is this version, and this set of layers is this version. Otherwise, it could be a pretty daunting
Or this
task.
is the one I like, this is the one I like least. Your choice, designer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this PSD file that Rufus gave me, and I've talked to the customer, and the customer says, well, instead of a humpback whale, we want the version with the orcas, the killer whales, instead. So I'll turn on a preview button there, and what that's going to do is change layer comps, and it's going to swap out the humpback whales for the orcas version. And then the other thing that they want to do, instead of the large logo, they want to use the small logo instead, the small company logo. And we'll turn the other one off. Boom. So we turn the big one off, and now we've substituted the smaller one. And this has enabled me to make a quick adjustment or edit to the InDesign document from a very rich PSD file. The other benefit of this feature is by using layer comps, you have one master PSD file. You don't have to have 7 or 8 versions taking up space on a storage device.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't have to bother me to put in the orca.
That's right. That's right. I don't have to bother you at all, not one little bit. So anyway, that's how you access those PSD layers in InDesign. We're now going to toss it over to Rufus, and he's going to show you some things to do with layers in Illustrator.
And InDesign.
And InDesign as well.
InDesign first, because you're just getting back the file, and we have the orca here and the small logo, just like you chose. And what I'm going to do now is create a multilingual brochure. Okay? And to do that, I'm gonna use layers, because on each layer I'm going to have a different language. So in my layers panel, you can see that I already have layers prepared: English, French, German, and Italian. Okay, and I'm just going to place my text on the layout now. And what I'm going to do is go back to Bridge and take these texts here, Chinese, Italian, German, English, and drag them over to InDesign. And exactly the same way you did, Tim, with your images, I'm just going to let them go on here. And what I have is a place gun with my text in them. And using the right and left arrow keys, I can actually read the first few lines of that text, and so get an understanding of what language it is. Okay? Here we have the Chinese version, which doesn't preview very well, and which we're not going to be using in this specific brochure. So here's a little trick, that to remove something from your place gun, you just need to press the escape key, and boom, it's gone. We now only have 4 elements of text. And that same thing works for images. So if you brought in too many images or an image you don't want, you just need to press the escape key to get rid of it out of the place gun. So let's move out again. And what I'm going to do now, and let me see if I can get the layers panel out again. I'm going to insert that text. So here we have the English text, and what I'm going to do is shift-click, so the text flows into the columns automatically, and just let go. And here we have the English text. And then I'll go to my French layer and do the same. Shift-click. And go to my German layer and let go. Shift-click. And the last one, the Italian layer, shift-click. So we have all our texts organized in different layers. So that when we go to print, we can decide what layer we want to print. So we can do really a multilingual brochure. But another thing I want to bring in is an Illustrator file with a discount. Okay, so let's go back to Bridge a second. And what I have prepared here is a little star. Is this called a starburst or
Starburst.
starburst? Okay, and
Hopefully not a starbust.
starburst. I wouldn't, you know. Well, and let's put this here, okay? And we see that we have a $10 discount on this specific trip. But obviously, for the French version, we don't have a $10 discount. We maybe have a €6 discount, okay? So what I'm going to do first is take this object and clone it in all the other layers too. So to do that, I'm pressing the Alt key while I'm moving. Oh, let me just turn on the views here. We have all the overlapping text. But what this allows me to do is just to clone, by holding down the Alt key, to clone the objects on each layer, just moving them from one layer to the other.
Alt or Option. Option on Mac, Alt on Windows.
Okay, very good. And what we have now, let me look at the Italian version, is that we have the $10 discount, but we don't want that. But the designer was very smart, because the designer used layers inside of the document. So what I can do, just as you did with the Photoshop file, I can Control-click or right-click on the PC and go to the Object Layer options. And there, the designer prepared layers for me. The euro discount, the dollar discount, I think we have a pound discount. So let's just turn on the euro discount and turn off the dollar discount. Oh, obviously, I need to go into preview.
Yes.
Okay.
Check your preview box.
This always happens to me. Just click on preview and you will see the magic happening right here. Okay. So what we have now is that for the Italian, German, and French version, we have the euro symbol. Okay. So let's do that very quickly for the other two as well. Or what we can do is just delete these on the French and this version here, and take the object from the Italian version and do the same thing, Alt, drag, Alt, drag. Okay? And as far as the English one is concerned, we leave the dollar sign. Okay? So what's the benefit of that? Is that I can actually choose the layers from the InDesign, from the Illustrator file. But if the designer now suddenly changes his idea and changes the color, opening this file and changing maybe the gradient that we have in here, and this is in the Appearance panel, I can actually select this, and as we can see, the fill is a gradient. And if we change that gradient, let's open the gradient window a second. Here it is. Let's take it out. And out of the swatches panel, if I change that color to a yellow now, you know, it changes it inside of my document. And when I save it, InDesign will tell me that the links have been changed. So let's go to the links panel, and we see the little alert sign. And we're going to be updating these links by clicking on this button here, which updates the links. And just with one click, we've actually updated all of the graphics on all layers. Okay? So if we now go to check the French version again, we have the €6 discount, but on the yellow background. That really speeds up your productivity when you start thinking like that, preparing files for different purposes, and allowing, you know, immediate changes like that.
Yeah.
And why did we do all that? Go through the trouble of creating all these layers and organizing the document in that way?
I suspect it has something to do with PDF.
It does. It does. Let's turn on the English version. And if we go under File, Export, and export that as a PDF, let's call it Telegraph Cove PDF, put it on the desktop, save. We can actually, you know, we can do high quality print, press quality, choose any of these presets. Let's do a high quality print because it doesn't need to go to professional printing. It's a PDF that we need to put on the web maybe or share via email. So let's do that for Acrobat 6. And as we can see down here, we can create the Acrobat layers. Okay?
What that means is when InDesign creates the PDF, it's going to take each layer in the InDesign document and make a separate layer in the PDF.
Exactly. And let's just export that and see what happens. Hidden objects. Okay. They are hidden because we're looking at the English version. So it's exporting page 1 and opening Acrobat. And here we have our PDF. So let me just resize that window a second and show the full page. And what we have down here on the side is the ability to turn on the layers. And let's get rid of this window here. And if we toggle this, we actually see that we can choose from the English version, the French version, note the €6 discount, German version, and Italian version. So this has multiple purposes. We can actually send this file out so the user can choose the language, or we can choose to send a print PDF, a high-quality press PDF to the printer and say, print all the languages, but we're only sending one PDF.
Yeah, this is a really nice feature. So it does enable you to create multiple versions of a document in a PDF file, and multiple language versions is really just one example of why that might be used. So that's a very good example of that. And so let's review what we've looked at on today's episode. We've looked at metadata. We spent a lot of time on metadata, supported across the entire Creative Suite. Very, very important feature that I think is probably underutilized. A lot of people haven't screwed up the courage yet to go and play with it. But hopefully after you've seen what we did with metadata today, we'll encourage you to go start entering metadata for your digital photos, because chances are it'll benefit you at some point.
Yes, because if now you have 100 pictures on your computer, tomorrow you may have 100,000. And then how are you going to find the pictures?
And then people can also go and grab that free JavaScript off of Adobe Share.
There you go.
Using the URL that we provided. Please go grab that JavaScript, play with it, play with metadata, and see how it can help you.
And then we've looked at how to use layer comps in Photoshop inside of InDesign. So how to prepare your files so that others can work with them.
So hopefully you found all this material exciting and useful. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Caffè Fibonacci.
Yep.
Thanks. Bye.
Ciao.